Man, oh man, what a nightmare for the Miami Dolphins. I thought, honestly, the Dolphins losing was worst case scenario, seeming as the directions both these teams are heading. I thought that was low key worst case scenario, kind of showing we'll not be able to get over that hump. But it just got so much worse with Tua Tagovailoa suffering a concussion. And that's where I'm going to start. Like, obviously, first and foremost, all I care about is Tua's health. Like, I want him to be a healthy human for the rest of his life. I don't care if he chooses to retire, but that's going to be the lingering question on this entire season. He obviously just got paid. And quite frankly, if we don't have Tua, we do not have a chance because of how this offense is designed. It is extremely complex. Hence the reason our backup situation is the way it is. And Skylar Thompson went out and didn't really do much. So this season is Tua dependent. Skylar might be able to beat a bad team, but the real question is what's going to happen with Tua, and we're not going to have answers. I just want him to be okay. That's what it comes down to. But prior to the injury, it was still a classic Dolphins versus Bills game. If we're going to be real, a little different, I would say, in terms of like, but not really. It was classic Dolphins versus Bills game. Dolphins self-inflicted mistakes, whether it was the first interception that was not Tua's fault, just bounced right off the receiver, pick. Miscommunication between Tua and Robbie Chosen, pick. Poor run defense, third down, not being able to get off the field. It was classic Dolphins versus Bills, and obviously I'm gonna give major props to the Bills. I was low-key shitting on them. Like, they lost a lot of talent. Diggs, Poyer, Hyde, and they did not skip a freaking beat. They look just as good. They suffered injuries to Tron Johnson, Terrell Bernard. It didn't matter. They look like the same freaking team. Flies around, physical, doesn't miss a tackle. Like, they're just a very, very good team, and they've got a great system there between the GM and the coach. Like, that's really good. So obviously props to the Bills. They shut me the fuck up. I'm gonna be real. But yeah, it's just brutal. Like I said, like, even if we had lost, like, it was trending like we were going to lose. Like I said, the injury to Tua and then Tron Armstead and Robert, like, it just compounded. I'm not using like the other injuries outside of Tua as an excuse. Like, the Bills have a shit ton of injuries, but the Tua one, like I said, that just a lingering question. On the season, but also like the quarterback position for the Dolphins, like it's insane. Um, so that I'm gonna leave it at that. Like I said, there's not much more else I can say. I wish him to be just a healthy human outside of football. I don't think Tua is going to want to retire, but even say he passes concussion protocol, like, do the Dolphins hold him back? Because how many concussions has he suffered within the past 2-3 years? It's a lot, especially on a big national stage where, like, he has that fencing posture that happens when you get concussed. Um, it Some of the concussion things, like, people want to be, how dare them run him out? Like, I'm a UFC fan. These dudes get concussed every fight, and they're rolling them back out, getting paid nothing. So I think it's unfair to judge people if they want to continue to play. It's their life ultimately. I think Tua is going to want to play. What that timetable looks like is just a question. But I will say, I think this game um, exposes this team fundamentally. And I know everyone's been clamoring about the Dolphins' lack of resources put on the interior offensive line and defensive line. And I get that. And I'm not even going to disagree there. I think definitely was exposed today because the Bills were running a lot of cover two safeties back, and the Dolphins in the first half were trying to answer that by running the football. And they had some good runs, but guess what? Like, the way this team plays is just it's too gimmicky. It's too fancy. Like, McDaniel comes from the Shanahan tree, but when you watch the two play, it's completely different. Like, the Dolphins are doing all these fake one way pitch the other. And, like, once again, those are good plays from time to time, but it just can't be your whole offense. And it has been for the Dolphins, and it doesn't work. Because even the 49ers, they have those similar offensive line question marks that the Dolphins have, but they do not play at that level. I think they put them in better positions to have success, and I think that's just a coaching and schematic thing that I would like McDaniel to look internally and kind of revert back to his old Shanahan ways and kind of get a little further away from what he's been doing of late with all these motions and things of that nature. And not the motion, but just the gimmicky stuff is what I'm referring to. Get back to more of the core principles and have a few gimmicks here and there, but don't make it your whole offense. That's my take on it. So it's not necessarily in terms of resources spent on the offensive line, because like I said, the Niners do the same exact thing. It's just the execution of it. But we would have a few good runs, called back, false start, holding. We'd get to third and short. They'd stuff us on third and short, and then it's fourth and short, and then we would fail there. So it just wasn't working. We weren't getting big enough runs, despite them being in cover two, despite them being without their nickel corner. I was calling for the Dolphins to pound the rock, and they tried to do it, and they couldn't against a too high show. That just goes to show. And I mean, it sure is a player issue, sure. But like I said, I think it's also a scheme and coaching issue on Mike McDaniel. So that's not changing this season. That the scheme is what it is. Like, you're not going to change halfway. I mean, it's obviously only week 2. You're not going to change basically the core concepts of your offense. But obviously, our core concepts are good enough to beat most teams. But I think it's fundamentally flawed as shown in this outing. Defensively, didn't look good. Obviously, the offense did not help them out between just not being able to stay on the field, turning the ball over on Bill's territory already, like things of that nature. But they were not able to get off the field on third downs. A lot of bad pass rushing, bad run fitting. Just overall, once again, it's just a classic Dolphins-Bills game. I'm going to be real. Like, the Bills own us until they don't. And I'll believe it when I see it. I'm not getting my hopes up anymore. So, yeah, that's that. I'm sure all of you other Dolphins fans feel the same way as me. It sucks. It sucks a lot. Like, this is all in as you can be on a football team in terms of resources. And it's still not good enough. And now your franchise quarterback that you just paid has a big lingering question mark again. So that's all I got today. Appreciate you guys for watching, and fins up.